We're going down the rabbit hole. I brought my professional glasses just to let you guys know how serious this is and that we're not playing any games.
A 24-hour news cycle, like when the written word also meant more as well. There was more faith.
Well, I can't speak on that because I wasn't living that generation where you had to get on
You can even go back, I mean, honestly, the 24-hour news cycle, if you talk to older people like in their 30s and 40s, post 9/11 was pretty much the first time where cable networks had to keep their airways on all the time. So they started filling slots with not correspondents and not field pieces, but just pundits. So what they would do is they would get two people who fundamentally disagree and just have them yell at each other for like 2 hours to drive up engagement and keep people watching. So news kind of became like soap opera. Everything kind of became about engagement, like almost like reality TV. And then gradually trust faded because it became so partisan.
Yeah, I think it's also a sign of the times that we're seeing distrust and we're seeing the world get a little bit crazier as well.
So, I mean, what do you think we need to avoid?
What do we need to avoid? I think we need to call things out for facts. And you shouldn't be afraid to say when I ask you, what are Somalis known for? You're afraid of your viewers watching this video calling you a racist or Islamophobe.
No, to clarify,
you knew that word, Andrew. You knew you were saying pirate. You knew in your mind.
Well, you're asking me to think in a stereotypical mind. What do I think comes
in your?
What's the first stereotype?
To say it, though.
You're asking me what's the first stereotype that comes to mind when I think about Somalia.
I said, what are they known for?
They are known by Americans who don't know Somalis.
What are they known across the West for?
Well, the West is very much indoctrinated by Hollywood. I'm just saying I want to wait to answer that before I actually have engaged with the community on a level to where I can actually say, like, they're known for this type of thing.
Well, when they're committing 89% of the fraud in Minnesota.
But that wasn't the question. You asked me, hey, what are Somalis known for? And, of course, I'm thinking of the movie because it's a Tom Hanks Hollywood blockbuster.
Yeah, but it's a fact that they're committing some sort of piracy in Minnesota. 89% of the fraud is committed by Somalis, and that's a fact. When we talk about building trust in the future of media, we need to be able to say things for what they are. If Tim Walz goes on TV and calls people like me a white supremacist, it's my responsibility to call Tim Walz. He's enabled this to happen because he's afraid to be called a racist or an Islamophobe. Meanwhile, our generation can't even buy a home. Meanwhile, people are stealing millions of dollars. And he's afraid to say that because he's too afraid of being called a racist or an Islamophobe.
I think the one main issue that I feel like unites the left and the right, at least in a certain income bracket in the U.S., would be affordability.
Yes, 100%.
I think it's probably the main issue that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Deep down, I think that the main difference here is diagnosing how we can get to that point. You know, because when you're talking about your issue with fraud, you mentioned healthcare being expensive.
Yeah.
So we're all talking about the same thing here. It's just, I think the main difference is how are we going to get there?
And then when we have someone like Elon Musk, the smartest man in the world, who offers his help to get rid of fraud here in the United States, that could potentially cut down prices for healthcare, that could potentially help cut down the prices for homes, that could potentially give people better wages, and then they go and attack him.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is also the private sector controls so many of these things, like medicine and also real estate. Like, it's not like home prices are going to get knocked down because the government has more money.
It might be able to help people not have to pay so much in taxes. Yeah. It might help people to be able to take their dollar to buy the next thing. $120 billion in 2024 going towards fraudulent activity here in the United States. And then we go and attack that person who's trying to combat that?
Well, I guess one of the fundamental questions, too, that I mentioned early on in the interview.
You know, Nick Shirley, his rhetoric is so MAGA. Everything he represents is complete MAGA rhetoric, MAGA narrative, and it's part of the MAGA psyop, right? His confidence in his point of view is scary. It's absolutely scary because this is a 20-year-old who grew up wealthy. Like, his family was wealthy. He did not have the same upbringing as majority, like 99% of Americans. Now, what Andrew Callaghans has explained here is that the issue of fraud, while it may be important, isn't as impactful as the privatization of these major industries that raise prices, right? Nick Shirley believes that saving money on taxes somehow is going to help Americans in a much more impactful way than actually clearing out the corruption of big business, right? A big business. Now, Andrew Callaghans, his point of view comes from the perspective of how media during the Reagan era changed the way that people voted, changed the way that politicians were presented. It changed the structure of how facts were even presented in the media, right? Because of that, it has, and lobbying on top of that, it has allowed for these major corporations to come in and really monopolize everything, including the housing market, including insurance and all of these industries where they can set the price at whatever level they want. And that is Andrew Callaghans' perspective. Nick Shirley's perspective is that immigration and fraud are the reasons why Americans are suffering. And I'll tell you, the numbers there, they do not equate to the level of corruption that comes in that boils down to how wealth is not being redistributed. Okay? America's GDP last year in 2025 was $31 trillion. We've got a $10 trillion lead over China. You're telling me that with $31 trillion, let's say fraud accounts for, let's be generous and say fraud accounts for 20%, which would be like $6 trillion, which I don't think fraud is that big. But let's say fraud is 20% of the revenue that should be going to the GDP is wasted on fraud. There's still 80% of that GDP revenue that's still there. Fraud isn't going to collapse the system. And 20% is a lot, so I doubt it's that number. But if you get the point that I'm saying, fraud is not as big an issue. In my opinion, I agree with Andrew Callaghans as the privatization of and the level of capitalism that goes into today's economy.
It was like, do you trust the government to handle a surplus in tax revenue if fraud is eliminated?
Say that question.
Like, let's say like fraud is totally eliminated and the government has like an extra stipend of money that they have that they could technically redistribute to things like making medicine cheaper and helping us pay rent. You think that the government would actually do that? Like, do you think they would genuinely invest in social programs that help change the affordability crisis?
I think so. And that kind of goes back to having like faith that we hope our politicians are going to do better and work for us and us not be working for them. Trump's the only president of our lifetime who's actually not even collecting a salary. Other than what people will say, he's feeding his ego. Well, he's actually not even taking a salary. He's lost money. He's been attacked. He's been nearly shot and killed twice. He's had, I think, was it 2 or 3 assassination attempts? I want to say 3. The guy in Pennsylvania, the guy at his golf course, and there's another one. And people want to keep demonizing Trump like he's some sort of devil.
I'll tell you, Nick Shirley is exactly why people think MAGA is a cult. Exactly why people think MAGA is a cult. Donald Trump has made over $3.5 billion his first year this term as the president. That's more than any president has ever made. So, like, that completely destroys his entire argument. And the thing is, he's a young guy. I don't even want to spoil it because I already saw the interview, but it's like, I don't know how much of what he's saying is a lie versus just ignorance. And he plays ignorant a lot while giving these false statistics. Like, that is so false, bro. I don't even remember what you said after that. All I remember you saying was that he's made no money. And that is complete cap, bro. You can look it up. Google it. Bro, that Trump coin made billions for him and his family. Okay? Verified. That's public information. So it is insane, right? Everything that happened in regards to people going against him, name another presidential candidate in history that had that level of a battle against their image while running for president. Name one. I don't think you can. And I could be wrong. But doesn't that just show you right there that maybe it's not just the systems trying to stop him. Maybe he's actually that kind of a person. That's what I don't understand about MAGA. It's like, look, if you think he has good policy, okay, that I can respect if that's what you believe. Not saying that I agree with you, but I can respect the fact that that's your perspective, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe his policy is good. But you cannot sit here and act like Trump is some sort of great guy. Like Trump is just this, victim who the media is just trying to destroy unwarranted. I think people genuinely don't like Trump to the level where you have companies like Midas Touch that dedicate every single day to criticizing him and have grown in mass numbers because there are a lot of people that genuinely do not like this guy. Think about it. Why wasn't it any prominent new media rising during Biden's era solely as a way to just criticize him the whole time? I know it was a lot of Republican media that were criticizing him every time something criticizable happened. But with Trump, every single day last year, every single day, there was not one day where Trump didn't do something that people were criticizing. And it wasn't like, oh no, the media is just, it was things that genuinely were warranted for criticism and his behavior. He's got to be one of the most unprofessional presidents we've ever had, regardless of the fact that all of our presidents may have had issues. As far as presentation goes, like, come on, man. You can't act like Trump is just this victim, Nick. What?
He's not even taking a salary. He wants to put tariffs on other countries with the goal of hoping that we can have more money. And actually, with that tariff income, he's even given military a bonus for Christmas. Yeah. And people are saying tariffs are bad. Why should we be paying more money than Indonesia for sending stuff into our country?
That's a good question.
So,
it's also like if Trump's cutting all these different social programs and stuff, who's to say that if he had more money, he would reinvest in the people?
He's not. For instance, when people say he's cutting out funding for food stamps, he's telling people, all right, you're on it for this amount of time, but you need to be showing that you're trying to get off it. Trump is actually incentivizing people to go make a better life for themselves. He's even giving children, he's showing kids how to invest money at a younger age through the stock accounts he's created for them. Michael Dell, the owner of Dell, he gave each child, I think $250 so they can see how to invest their money. Right now you're seeing more people who actually have the power to make a change in America than ever before get involved in the politics, and not because they want to, but because they've been forced to. But then you see people come after them for it. I don't know what you're going to title this video.
Nick Shirley interview.
Okay, sick. Yeah, but I just think there's so many issues in the United States right now, and we can actually go out and combat them. We can combat the immigration crisis. We can say that illegal migrants should not be here. The word is illegal. If you're going to come after me for exposing fraud, something is morally wrong with your brain, where you've gotten to the point where you think fraud is good.
That perspective is probably more like these people are socioeconomically disadvantaged.
They're not, though. They're here in America. We all have the same opportunity. They're Somalian Americans.
Well, there's pretty...
I have to stop them there. I don't understand how in 2026 you can really believe that everybody has the same opportunity in America or anywhere for that matter. That is such a false statement. That is almost a blatant lie. There's no way that everybody could have the same opportunity in America. regardless of how perfect the system was. It just does not exist. If you come from a wealthy family, your opportunities are going to be superior to somebody who comes from a poor family. Simple. So, no, not everybody has the same opportunity, Nick Shirley. Not everybody has the same opportunity at all. That is I respect Andrew Callaghans because he's more of a, like, he's not gonna go super one-sided, but he's just letting a lot of stuff slip in this interview, and it's almost like, man, like, bro, this guy needs to be pressed a little harder. And that's the thing about a lot of the interviewers. The thing is, Nick Shirley, right? He's a young guy. He is, that whole Somali daycare thing went mega viral to anybody who's in the industry, and especially seeing the fact that he's been doing this kind of content for a while. He's been consistent at it, and he's growing. He, in a sense, is like living the American dream under Trump, in a sense, right? He's a great representation of, how you can capitalize on the Trump regime in a way that Trump would approve, right? So for a lot of people that interview him, especially those that want to stay out of controversy, they're not going to press him as hard as they should on his clear and blatant propaganda, is what I would call it. Because a lot of the things that he's saying warrants a response. You know what I mean? Like, in my opinion, that warrants a response. But, and I know Andrew Callaghans isn't a Trump supporter, but Andrew Callaghans also isn't someone who's risen to fame off of kind of provoking, being a provocateur. I think he's just going to let the people decide. I think that's more of his angle, right? But, yeah, Nick Shirley is just not being authentic here with what he's saying. And I know he has been pressed about it before. Like, there's no way this whole time he's had these beliefs and no one has pressed him. Of course he's been pressed about it. And it's either he really believes it, or what I think it is with Nick Shirley is that in his heart, he believes that Democrats are evil. They're anti-religion. They're anti-Christianity. That's what I think Nick Shirley believes in his heart, and he believes that it is his mission to make sure people vote Republican because he thinks that Republican is going to align with God value, with Christian values more. And while he's saying that he believes fraud and all these issues, there's, the real problems in America, I think what he really intends to do is to convince people to vote Republican. And that is his goal. That is really the goal of all of the propaganda that has come in the interim of Trump's first presidency. It's on the Republican side especially. It's like at a certain point, the whole strategy changed. Like, somebody said, okay, this is how we're going to attack the culture. This is how we're going to culturally get people to vote Republican. And yeah, bro, it's strong. It's a very strong pull because obviously this kind of manipulation has been used successfully for generations. So it's like a no-brainer.
Significant funding and financial disparities between areas in the U.S.
Well, 81% of Somalians are on welfare.
The welfare doesn't necessarily cover everything. As long as they give you a ridiculous amount of money.
But they have the same opportunity I do when I wake up in the morning to go create the best life I can possibly create for myself. Everybody has the same opportunity if you're a United States citizen. Whether you're black, Mexican, Asian. I mean, look at your crew filming right now. You have a Asian, Japanese man. I don't know who he is. You have a Mexican with the face tat.
Look at that Mexican and all the opportunity he's got. And what about him?
He's a white American with face tattoos, and he's working just with you.
Yeah.
So the fact that people think that they don't have the same opportunity or they can't go create a lifestyle they want, I don't believe in that. I've never worked for anybody in my entire life. I've created everything I have. Who knows what I can do in the next 20 years?
Yeah, same here. I'm 28. So maybe you and I will
What's
be...
your plans for the future, Andrew?
Man.
So do you want to make YouTube videos until you're like 60?
Yeah, I want to make YouTube videos until I'm 85.
And what I'll say here, you can just tell, like I was stating earlier, Nick Shirley is somebody that a lot of these guys in the industry, whether they have strong political views or not, they see Nick Shirley in themselves, right? They see themselves in Nick Shirley, is what I meant to say. So in this moment, Andrew Callaghans can relate to the fact that, hey, this young kid, he's fighting for what he believes in, even though I don't agree with him, but I can respect his perspective, even though what he's saying here, like especially about the Somali community and how he's generalizing, bro, it's just not right. Just because Trump does it doesn't make it right, bro. It doesn't, but I mean, that's kind of the state. That's kind of where we are, right? Like, that's the right thing to do, biblically, is to generalize groups of people and call that truth. I don't get it. I don't understand that concept, but, maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to being wrong, but that just doesn't make much sense to me. So, yeah, I mean, and it's kind of disappointing because it's like, bro, you got to press this guy on some of the things that he's saying, and I don't know why. I do know why. I feel like it's harmful in the sense of like people are going to treat other people, especially of the Somali community, poorly just because of the perception. And it's just like, do they really deserve that? Bro, like a year ago, nobody had anything to say about Somalis. Most people didn't even know that there was a community of Somalis in Minnesota. So it's just like, okay, so in 2026, Somalis are now all villains in the U.S. It's crazy. All because Trump said it. Trump started that wave. Our president, that Nick Shirley respects so much.
Yeah, same here. I'm 28. So maybe you and I will be...
What's your plans for the future, Andrew?
Man.
So do you want to make YouTube videos until you're like 60?
Yeah, I want to make YouTube videos until I'm 85.
That'd be sick.
So what do you want to do in the future? What's the long-term plan?
Long-term plan would be, I think what you just saw is actually creating change inside of America. A video that actually created change. And so I'd like to continue making the world a better place, whether it be through cutting off fraud or speaking out against corruption or helping the old lady next to me.
And are you ever worried the Matrix will come for you if you continue to accrue power and influence?
Well, they are. Like, when you say Matrix, like, I think that's like the mainstream media or people, but like, who do you think the Matrix is?
I think it's the C-suites of the corporations that own the major news channels.
Yeah, I mean, they can try, but that's why I think it's so important that we have platforms like X. Say the mainstream media hates you, you can still make a business off of people who support you.
Is there any coverage that you regret at all?
Yeah, there actually is some coverage that I think I like messed up on, or not that I necessarily.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause this real quick, but I do find it pretty interesting how much Andrew is kind of just glazing Nick in this moment. But I mean, hey, bro, I'm not mad at it, bro. I mean, Nick Shirley, I gotta give him his props, bro. Like he is really good at making content that is going to get a reaction. I'll say that. And his content isn't bad, as in a sense of like, I've reacted to some of his stuff. He actually goes and he interviews people. The issue I have with it is it's just way too, the narratives is just way too like one-sided for me. Like he edits all of his videos to paint a picture in a way that's going to fit his own narrative. And, I guess that's what people do. That's just what it is. But I guess I just don't like his narrative, if I'm being honest. I don't like the narrative that he's trying to present.
messed up on, but maybe not have been totally informed, which is hard because when you're making a YouTube video every single week, you just can't be like the expert on every topic. So there was a time when I went to Ukraine and I made a video, and I was missing. I kind of like geographically, I'm from Utah, so all the mountains and stuff, like north, south. And someone when I was in Ukraine, they asked me, like, do you want to go to where the first place where Russia invaded, which was a place called Busha? And I didn't know, like, whether it was north, south, west. And then somebody interviewed me after, because I had criticized where U.S. tax dollars were going. Somebody interviewed me after asking me, did you go to the east? And I said, well, yeah, I went to Busha. I thought that's where Russia initially invaded. That was one of the main places they invaded before trying to go to Kyiv. So that was like a mistake on my end, and I felt so bad after that. But it was just a mistake that we had made, and I just made it publicly. It didn't make me want to do YouTube less. It was just a learning lesson, which is hard for people to have an actual learning lesson publicly.
Yeah.
I'll admit, it's good to see him admit to that. Because it looked like in another clip I saw, it looked like he was almost trying to cover up for it. The YouTuber that he's referencing, yeah. In that video, he said it was satire in his response. So originally when the YouTuber brings it up, the inaccuracy in what he was stating, he claims that it was satire, and now he's claiming it's a mistake. You guys probably aren't going to look into that. It is what it is, but it's like, man, this guy is supposed to be this, like, Christian kid who just grew up in the church and is just, like a God-loving kid, but it's like, you are being deceitful. Like, you're kind of being a deceitful person, and it seems intentional because of how much of a pattern I'm seeing here. I know I'm going to tag, I'm going to use the Nick Shirley tag, and I'm going to get a lot of Republicans and Nick Shirley fans who are not going to like what I have to say here, but, bro, this is how I see it, okay? I know you guys are going to see it differently, which is a whole nother topic in itself, because I don't understand, like, how you guys are looking at facts of what's going on. If you're just looking at what your favorite Republican commentator has to say about an issue, then you are literally being manipulated. Same thing if you're a Democrat and you're just looking at what the Democrats have to say. I look at both sides for everything. And it's like, you can't really just believe everything one side is saying. That's like the worst thing you can do, in my opinion.
Definitely.
I'd actually like to ask you a question.
What's that?
What do you think about Trump?
I don't like him.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, do I think that he is somebody who's going to fundamentally change the structure of the U.S. for the better? I don't think so.
So do you think just by flooding the country with 20 million people helped us with affordability? It's not a human right to receive citizenship here. If anything, it's an opportunity to get it, and you got to follow the rules for it.
I agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
So I think sympathy towards people who want to come in here has in a lot of ways destroyed the opportunities for our generation.
I think if sympathy overpowers your ability to look at a situation objectively, that would be an example of you kind of being hypnotized by the wrong sources of information. But I think you can have sympathy for people struggling looking for a better life.
It's just simple.
This whole new age no sympathy argument, it's just so sad, bro. And then they're doing this in the name of God. like what? That just completely distorts my whole perception of everything. Like, you're telling me that God wants us not to have sympathy for each other? Are you serious? That's the right thing to do, is to not have sympathy? Now, look, I can understand the fear that bringing in this kind of immigration is the Democrats' way of getting these immigrants to vote Democrat, and that Nick believes that this increase in immigration is, causing people to not be able to get the same jobs and have to compete with immigrants for labor, and the prices and inflation. I can understand that belief, but I've always been a math guy, and when you tell me 20 million people, right, were imported in, and the population is 340 million already, 20 million people is maybe 8%. I want to say maybe 7% of the entire population. I mean, it's a decent increase. But is it really going to cause that much inflation? I mean, how does that even cause inflation? If anything, I think, I guess it could, but I don't, in the way that inflation has risen, I don't think those numbers are the same. But I'm open to hear the argument. I'm open to hear it. I could be wrong.
Supply and demand. If you have 20 million people who need to come and buy a house or rent an apartment, and you have other people who need it, you're going to raise the prices.
Landlords have been raising the prices systematically since the 1980s. I mean, the reason you can't buy a house.
And that's actually kind of crazy that he would think that these immigrants that got here in the last 4 years are going to be ready to buy a house within that time period, when Americans that are actually competing heavily for, jobs and pay. And most Americans can't afford a house right now. You're telling me that immigrants are able to come here and figure that out, and in a way that is increasing the price of the housing market that much? Is that what you Republicans really believe?
It's not because of an immigrant. I mean, they want us to think that because it's an easier scapegoat.
Well,
okay. Just looking at this figure, the surge in home price and rent growth predates the surge in immigration. Year over year, Q4 change. So from 2011 all the way up to 2023, right? So immigration is on the right side. It is the orange. Home prices is blue, and apartment rents is the black bar. So it seems like the apartment rates have pretty much generally been within the same range, with the exception of 2021. And I think that was the pandemic, the pandemic era. So during the pandemic, you see the home prices rose by a lot. Apartment rentals prices rose by a lot. It seems like that had a lot to do with the pandemic, and immigration also was rising at that time while the home prices are going up. But it rose in 2022 and 2023, yet home prices and rent went down. Interesting. If you look in 2013, there was a spike in home prices, yet immigration remained steady. Okay, so with that being stated, right, how on earth is immigration the cause? From these numbers right here, it clearly shows immigration is not the cause of home prices. This is the Housing Studies of Harvard University. Oh, but guess what? Harvard is left-leaning, so that's not going to convince you Republicans.
If you look at the graphs, when you receive all this immigration, the price of homes has gone up more than normal.
I don't think those two things are connected. If you look
but just based off simple supply and demand.
Those you can. I'm
If you
sure
bring
you
in
can
20
plot
million
that
people,
out.
they
But
have
I
to be
mean,
able.
rent
They
has.
have to be able to sleep in 20.
You can't justify a whole argument off of a simple supply and demand. Because it's not that simple, Nick. And the thing is, I know this kid is smart, bro. Like, he's smart enough to fucking, excuse my language, but he's smart enough to build this media empire. He's got over 1 million subs on YouTube, 1 million subs on Twitter. He is making big moves right now, right? He's making a lot of money doing what he's doing at the moment. He's very successful. You're telling me that you are going to condense an issue to simple supply and demand, and that's your whole conviction. You are going to fight and convince people to vote a certain way off of your personal opinion on supply and demand. You're not an economist. You're not even willing to hear out what Andrew has to say in opposition to that. Republicans, hear me out. If you're still watching this, what? Like, you guys are not even going to listen to the opposing argument? You're just going to stick to your opinion, supply and demand? Like, come on, man. Like, come on. You guys love statistics until they're convenient. Until they're not convenient. Until they go against your narrative. That's an issue, bro. That's mind control. That's cognitive dissonance. And you wonder. Have you ever wondered why cartels run Mexico, or why Hitler would ever get elected, or why evil people get put in power like Benito Mussolini or Kim Jong-un? Why do you think the people of North Korea keep Kim Jong-un in power? They could revolt and take him out. Putin. Why do you think Putin stays in power? Because people are easily controlled. There's a better way. But people are so easily controlled. It's just like, part of me is like, bro, why even try and convince you guys otherwise? Like, you're just going to believe whatever the popular narrative is. You're going to believe what the powers that be tell you. That's why they've got all the money. They've got all the power. Because you're ignorant. And it's just sad. There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, maybe there's something, but that is a battle trying to convince knuckleheads to see past the manipulation, see past the hypnosis and the psyop that they're in.
20, at least 10 million different locations.
Yeah, but we have 340 million people. I mean, I'm just saying home values rising and rent rising is a result of like greedy developers, landlords doing price gouging, so many factors. Like, I'm from Seattle, a city with not that much immigration from the border. And since 2013, before all of this stuff, like, rent had doubled because of Amazon moving their corporate campus downtown.
H-1B visas and all that stuff.
No, I'm saying Amazon as a tech company themselves bulldozed my home neighborhood, built apartments for their workers who are legal, and most of them are from the U.S. but from surrounding suburbs, and none of us could afford to live, so we had to all move to other low-income areas around, or just build our own way or move into an RV like I did. So I don't think there's a correlation between home values rising and migrants coming.
I think that would be very stupid to not be able to come to the conclusion that supply and demand is
They're
really
all
rising
poor, so
prices.
landlords raise prices when rich people move in because they go, oh, we got some big bucks in town, like in Aspen or somewhere.
That is so aggravating that he's still sticking to this argument. Well, somebody with 8 years on him is explaining to him a separate perspective where he is not directly counter-arguing any of Andrew's positions, right? He's just simply saying that supply and demand has to be it. There's no logic in doing that, bro. Like, this is just so disappointing, man, because it's like, what? I'm like, you have to be a Fed. You have to be a federal agent. Because there's no way I'm buying that this kid that's smart enough to understand how to build a platform to 1 million followers does not understand the flaws in his own argument. And this is something that he's convicted on because that's his content, right? But guess what? He wasn't investigating the Somalis before Trump brought it up, was he? Was he? Before Ilhan Omar became public enemy number one to the Trump regime, Nick Shirley was not and had nothing to do with that. So it's quite interesting how it's almost like he's media trained in a sense to know, hey, you don't directly bring attention to these conflicting answers you're getting. And I just don't get how people don't see through this stuff.
But just a normal sized home that used to cost $200,000 now costs $300,000.
So you're saying real estate developers see like a bunch of migrants rolling in town, they go, let's jack these prices up. These Venezuelans are rolling in cash.
And then the billionaires are able to come and buy the houses, and it causes the rent to go up, and they're able to charge certain prices, and a migrant can then move in with 8 other migrants, and they can afford rent, versus the one person who has a family with 2 children can't go and get that house because
rent is going up because the richest people in the country don't care about people like you and I. And they're interested in making as much profit as they can and keeping us as poor as possible for as long as they possibly can until regular people can figure out how to get control and get a foothold in the government. I think that they want us to blame migrants because it's easier for them because they don't threaten their power either. So if they can keep us bickering about whether or not this migrant group got here the right way, then nothing will ever change and we're just going to be here forever.
One major flaw in this whole argument Andrew just gave, which just ruined the whole argument, is that he's comparing how billionaires feel about Andrew Callaghans and Nick Shirley. Both of these guys are... Andrew Callaghans, I'm positive he's a multimillionaire, if not just a millionaire. He's in the upper 1%, or he's in the 1%. At least. Nick Shirley, if he's not already a millionaire, he's definitely making 6 figures and a high 6 figures for what he's doing. He's probably making he's probably making 6 figures a month now. Before, I'm pretty sure he was making, I have no doubt he was making 5 figures a month from what he was doing. So, Nick is working on behalf of a lot of these billionaires. So they definitely care about a person like Nick Shirley, who is going to directly benefit them in their agenda. They will make him very wealthy if he continues on this path. Right? Nick Shirley is in the right lane. Andrew Callaghans, he is very in the middle, right? He is not one of those media organizations that is going against the narrative, and he's also wealthy. He's got money, bro. Those billionaires are not affecting him in the way that they're affecting somebody like you and me, probably, whoever's watching this. Me, I do not make 6 figures, and yeah, I pay an exorbitant rent. My rent is majority of my monthly, what I make a month. Okay, so it's a big difference.
I would beg to differ, but I do think there is corruption within the billionaire class here inside the United States, just on a matter-of-fact basis. That the issue of supply and demand instantly comes into place when you bring in 20 million people.
If anything, wouldn't they lower the rent?
No, because then they have more competition, and they can raise the prices.
I just don't think that immigrants are increasing the density of New York City.
When you bring in 10 million people, there needs to be 10 million locations. Not 10 million. There needs probably 2 million. Still, that's a lot of infrastructure to be up. That's a lot of building to take place. You're going to be able to raise. It's just a supply and demand issue.
Yeah, I just think we fundamentally disagree on that, knowing how just greedy developers are in general.
If people aren't able to afford it, then they have to get Section 8, and then they get stuck in that system where if you make more than $40,000, you're going to lose your Section 8. And then if you go and do better, like the lower class is trapped here inside the United States because
the middle class has been erased by corporatization.
Yeah, and so
the small business sector has been gutted since Reagan.
Yeah, there's a huge issue with affordability in housing, and I think we'd be in a better place if we didn't just let in 10 million people through our borders.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. I hope that you're right, because that's what Trump is doing. If the border's closed and in 15 years everybody my age is just living happily in a three-bedroom family home.
Prices will continue to go up because they go up over time, but at the rate that they were going up was unacceptable, and it screwed over me and your generation. Like, how are people supposed to be able to buy homes?
We can't.
Exactly.
But you think closing the border will make it so we can buy a home?
Well, the effects are already in place. The inflation already went up. The houses and the prices have gone up, and the wasteful spending has increased as well. And who's profiting? The billionaires and the politicians.
Well, I think they have a vested interest in making sure.
And the NGOs. Changes. I don't think so. I think there's bad billionaires, and I think there's good billionaires in this world. And
this is a frustrating conversation because, in one hand, Nick Shirley is admitting that corrupt billionaires exist and that they're benefiting from everything. But on the other hand, he's saying that his solution is to side with what said billionaires are co-signing. Name one billionaire that has gone against Trump, that has dedicated their entire online presence to just trashing Trump and everything he does, or name a billionaire that is actively trying to get Trump out of power, corrupt or not corrupt. Name one billionaire. Other than, I guess you could maybe say the owner of the Wall Street Journal. But that's like a personal vendetta, right? I don't even see Democratic billionaires that, are big Democratic donors. I don't see them trying to go against Trump in any way. You can say the media, but most of the media that I'm seeing that's really pushing against Trump is independent media. I'm not seeing billionaires try and push against him. So I don't like that argument.
And I think a lot of billionaires are trying to make a lot of change here in this world. And I think they create a lot of opportunity. You talk about Amazon. Well, Amazon also employs hundreds of thousands of people here inside the United States.
Who do you think are the three most benevolent billionaires?
What do you mean by the word benevolent?
Just well-intentioned, positive billionaires who you think are creating, net positive societal progress.
Trump, our president. I think he's a good one. I think Elon Musk. I think what he's doing is creating innovation. He provides lots of jobs to people. I think that's a good one. And then the third one, I'd have to think about that. I think David Sachs, he's looking for innovation inside of AI and crypto. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good thing to be happening. I think all the guys on the All In podcast, I had a conversation with them on their podcast. I think they're looking out for the best of America. And I think a lot of the people I think a lot of the billionaires are actually trying to make a difference in this world with their money they have, because you don't need $1 billion, and they know that they are able to use their resources.
Well, then
to create change.
Why do they virtually get, taxed almost nothing, while the basically bottom 99% have to give solid 20-30% of our income to the state?
Yeah, it's unfair for us, and but that's also how businesses are set up. So you're right.
That's unfair, and That particular issue, as far as taxing goes, I obviously they're able to do that because they have lobbied their way into that being a reality. Very simple. Like the billionaires have rigged the game to their benefit. You can't sit here and just say, "Oh, that's just how things work." No, it works that way because things have changed, right? People like Trump come to office and they make things easier for billionaires. So no, it's not like that's how the system works. It's not how it's always worked. It got there over time. At one point, billionaires were being taxed 75% and the economy was thriving. The country was thriving. There were still many jobs being created. All right? We were still the number one superpower, even when billionaires were taxed 75%. All right? So, what Nick Shirley is proposing and his undying loyalty to these billionaires is sad. Elon Musk and Donald Trump being virtuous billionaires, it's just such a sad reality that is what people really are believing. And the thing is, I don't really have an issue with Elon Musk outside of the clear racist content that he reposts on Twitter. Outside of that, it's like, hey, bro, just stick to Tesla and all of the other things and getting us to Mars and all that other stuff. But, bro, these racist opinions that you have, it just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't. I don't think it comes from a good place. And I don't think that's a good culture to create within the U.S. As somebody who will never know what it means to live as a, non-white person under that kind of a culture, right? With Donald Trump and, for one, being in the Epstein files as much as he's been in them. I mean, being accused of what he is accused of in the files while actually being a felon, while actually being a habitual liar, while creating the most divisive America we've seen. These are horrible examples. Horrible examples, bro. And that's sad, bro. It really is, The jobs that Elon Musk has created with Tesla, what is that, 500,000 jobs? There's 300 million people in the U.S. Sure, that's a lot of jobs. I'm not going to deny that. Great. That's awesome. That's really great. But the thing is, if Tesla never existed, if all those jobs never existed, those jobs would be created in some other way. They would be created. Nick, I will say though, Elon Musk is advancing the human race technologically, which, great, but if you are not actually helping humanity improve, then it's like, what are you doing it all for? And it's sad because I've always thought being a billionaire was so cool, and I thought, man, these billionaires really advance society. They truly are, they do great things for the world because they create products that just advance everything, right? They do. And that's what Elon Musk has done. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, what does this guy create? Some casinos, Trump Tower, which I think is a hotel for rich people. He was a real estate investor, and he did a TV show. I don't even know, like, how you become a billionaire off of any, like, the casino. I can understand how you become a billionaire from that. Trump Tower, sure, but I mean, he didn't really advance society in the same way. All he did was just branded his name, and just showed the world you can, brand the heck out of your name, and use that as a way to have enough social status to successfully run for president. Did he advance society in any way? I don't think so, honestly. During his first term, what did he do that was notable? He gave us stimulus checks, boosted a whole bunch of money into the economy doing so. I mean, it's not like he got us out of a recession like Obama did. I will say, we didn't go to war at all during his first term. That was great. The economy felt like it was doing really great back then. I remember money was flowing. Inflation was not an issue during Trump's first term. So the times were good. I will say it was racism we were seeing, not like this term. Nick Fuentes wasn't on, Tucker Carlson during Trump's first term. But the times, I will say, were good. People outside of that, didn't like Trump, but during the first term, you can't deny that times were good. This term, it's been awful. And the thing is, if the economy, jobs, wages, inflation were down, if everything else, the metrics were high, and all we had to deal with was racism, then I'd be okay with that. But it's not even like that, bro. Things are getting more expensive and people are getting poorer, and we got to deal with racism. It's like, what the hell?
Running a business, Elon Musk, they had to actually add on an extra number inside the IRS so he could pay taxes.
Yeah.
So people are mad at him for making money?
Yeah. I mean, I fundamentally hope that everything you're saying is true, just so you know.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah,
I hope we all have the best interest in society and for our people, because
yeah,
the affordability is insane and people can't buy houses. And if we're talking about creating change, we need to let innovation prosper inside the United States.
Yeah.
And you're not seeing it. We're not seeing innovation. In fact, we're seeing fraudsters take our money.
In Minneapolis, but there's innovation happening elsewhere, right?
Yes, but there's so many restraints happening. Like, when have you seen an American city? What American city is prospering right now?
Austin.
Name another one.
El Paso, Texas.
El Paso, Texas is prospering.
Yeah. Nashville's doing good. Phoenix is doing good. Basically, any place with low state tax is getting a lot of.
In any place that's not Democrat.
I don't know about that. I mean,
name a Democrat city that's prospering right now.
Well, it would have to be one that's affordable.
Name one.
Denver.
Why are you smirking? It's not prospering. Denver's not prospering either. Yeah, so I think what you're saying is the right is looking to have innovation, looking to succeed, and you're seeing left locations like Democrat-ran cities not prospering. In fact, they're going backwards.
I'm trying so hard not to just voice my disdain for this Nick Shirley guy, but I don't know, man. I definitely drank that Kool-Aid and believed that for a long time watching Republican content, bro. I definitely believed all these Democratic cities are going to trash, bro. I believed it. And it's just not true. It's just not true, bro. Every city has problems, and it's like you're just going to pinpoint. Everything he's stating is opinion. It's literally all opinion. You can look at Chicago and say all that violence and stuff, I'd never want to live there. But there's people that live in Chicago that don't experience any violence and experience all of the wonderful things the city has to offer, and don't look at their city as like some failed state. But that's how Nick Shirley wants us to look at Democrat-ran cities. Like it's just ridiculous, man. I mean, if those cities were that bad, why is there not a mass exodus from these cities? Why are people choosing to stay in these Democratic-ran cities if the cities are so bad? Maybe because it's not as bad as they're making it out to be. I don't know. Now, I live in, I live in a Republican city or state, and I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I've lived in a Democratic state, and I didn't have an issue with it either. But I will say things did get worse in that state, at least in my opinion, when it came to crime. When it came to crime, things did get bad, but I think they've gotten better over the years. So, that was a thing, but I don't know. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. I've been on this for an hour. That's way longer than I need to be. So if you like this video and you watched it this long, man, you guys are amazing, or you are amazing. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and tune in for the next one. Peace.